I also work full time. And so the podcast has been this kind of side thing that I try and do when I can do it.
Yeah.
And we try to record something every Sunday at least. And then we try to get stuff, taken care of, fixed, and then we get it out. And, some weeks we get one out. Some weeks we struggle a little bit, but it's been a lot of fun. But there's a big learning curve here.
Well, and that's how you have to start, is that learning curve. And you're jumping right in.
Right.
I've listened, so doing very well. Really enjoying.
Oh, you have listened to the show
that you've done. Yeah.
Nice.
Which episodes have you listened to?
So the ones that we actually talked about the other day were some of the ones that I went back and listened to, because when we had talked originally, I was not sure if you had done Nolan or not. So I went back with that. You talked about Tarantino. Now, let's see. Your favorite director is Tarantino. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Did you introduce yourself, Tabor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not officially.
Yeah.
But by the way, we are recording now.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah. So we're gonna do
little intro.
we're gonna do a little intro, and then I'll introduce everybody, and then we'll just kind of go from there. But if you've listened to the podcast, the beginning is always kind of a jumbled mess.
Yep.
So,
all right, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Welcome to my dad's movie podcast. I'm Mick Johnson. I'm the dad. And with me, as usual, my son, Tabor Johnson.
Hey, how's it going?
Nice.
Simple. Keeping it simple this week.
Good.
You my dad.
Yes. Also, all the way in from BYU, Hawaii, for Christmas vacation, my other son, Nicholas.
Yeah, just got in today.
Flew in today. His arms are tired.
Oh, dang it. I was just about to say that.
Yes. So today we have a really special guest on the podcast. We are going to be talking to Dr. Brent Cowley. That's correct?
Yes, and so happy to be here. Still in Hawaii, though. I'm guessing the weather is a little nicer than there in Idaho. But
Brent decided not to fly down to Caldwell, Idaho for this podcast. He stayed there. So.
Another time.
That's right. So, Brent, give us a little bit of background about you. I know that you're a professor at the college, BYU, right?
Yes. So I am an assistant professor in the program of communication, media, and culture. I'm in my third year here. Absolutely love it. But have a background of working in the film industry, kind of transitioning into academia and loving all different avenues of film. And so very excited to be here on the podcast.
Right on. So also, I think you had, when I talked to you before, I think you had mentioned that you do something with podcasts there in Hawaii also.
Absolutely, yes. So starting this year, last year I was the advisor for the Public Speaking Club and decided to boost that up a little bit with technology, and I am now advising the Podcast Club. And so I think that they've done their 7th episode. They try to do one a week. And right now they're trying to find their footing of themes and so forth.
Oh,
but
right on.
It's been a great experience, and we actually have a lot of funding coming in for a state-of-the-art podcast studio that will make it even better coming up next year.
Oh, wow.
That's what I need. I need some state-of-the-art funding going
Brent
on.
was telling me about all that they're getting, and I was like, man, that sounds nice.
Well, we're getting all that stuff too. You just got to bring it over.
Yeah.
Work it
You
out
guys just got to fly down to Hawaii and go to the podcast studio.
Put it in your
What I was
carry-on.
going to say, you will be our guest next time.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So the podcast that people are doing down there, how do we find that? What do you go to find a podcast that BYU is doing?
So here at BYU Hawaii, we kind of have a website that you can go to where a lot of things are uploaded space-wise. And so, I will get you the link to that.
Yeah.
The one that I think has been the most controversial so far on the podcast is the cats here in Hawaii are plentiful. And what is going to happen with the cats here on campus is one of the big ones. Not film related, but you could make a movie about the controversy surrounding this for sure.
Make a
Nice.
documentary about it, yeah.
Or make a musical.
Ooh,
Cats.
cats.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Now, can we get in any trouble for that? You know, even mentioning that we're going to make another. There's
Mentioning it, they can't do anything
Okay,
to
we're
us.
okay.
Well, we could probably get in trouble for just mentioning it because no one's supposed to talk about it anymore. We're
yeah.
supposed to just forget it happened.
Trying to forget it.
Yeah.
So the reason we've got Brent Cowley on tonight is my understanding from talking to Nicholas, who is currently my son.
For the moment.
For now.
Now, have you taken classes with Brent?
I have not. So the way Brent and I met was, I think the film department every month, so like every semester, and then every month, they do something called a film forum. And it's where one of the nights of the month, they watch a film and like anybody's invited to it, but it's put on by the film professors, and then anybody can come and watch the film, and then afterwards they ask us questions and are like, what did you guys think about that? How did that make you feel and stuff like that? I think Brent, you could probably like touch on that a little more.
Yeah, so this semester we had the theme of fascism, and it's just kind of worked out that we've started with the Studio Ghibli film right at the beginning of every school year because we know that we will fill every seat, and in fact, sometimes have to turn people away. And so we did
Really?
Porco Rosso, which is, you know, not one of those that screams fascism. There's a lot of underlying aspects to it. So we started with that, but the one that I did this semester was The Zone of Interest. If you have not seen it, it won Best International Film last year at the Academy Awards. And our focus was mostly on the sound and how, you know, this is not the typical film that you usually think about winning Best Sound at the Academy Awards, but there's just so many underlying important elements that tell you what's going on without actually showing them.
Nice.
And then the one that I saw, I wasn't able to go to Porco Rosso or The Zone of Interest, but what was the other one that we watched?
To Be or Not to Be.
To Be or Not to Be.
Yeah.
That was a fun
Ernst
one.
Lubitsch.
Yeah.
Yeah, very wonderful German director. And again, kind of looking at fascism through comedy. So very different approaches in kind of looking at the topics.
Yeah.
So in talking to Nicholas a few times, you know, I'm always looking for interesting people to talk to and be on the podcast and talk about, you know, different directors and stuff. And we've been doing a lot with Hollywood directors, and we're starting to do a lot with independent film directors and actors and stuff like that. And Nicholas was like, well, you know, I've got a professor here who knows a lot about Christopher Nolan.
Who knows a lot about film in
Yeah, yeah.
general? Like,
And I'm like, well, absolutely, you know. And then he was like, yeah, I think he did his doctorate or master's on Christopher Nolan. I'm like, oh my gosh, he might be too much knowledge.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it today. I started working on this 10 years ago on my master's thesis. Didn't come easily with what I would end up doing, because I'll just say where I received my master's at the University of North Texas, they were very particular on how you read film. And it is, you kind of forget that somebody made it and you just tell us what is in it. Like, tell us what it means. Tell us about the text. And I was much more interested in the extra textual side of this, which is Christopher Nolan himself. Like, what was his inspiration? What led him to do the differing approaches that he took? And so anyway, although they weren't happy, that's the approach I took.
I guess it worked. You got the
the master's.
degree and everything.
Yeah.
So
I got the degree. That's the other thing I was thinking about today, looking at those names going, they did it.
nice. So, yeah, so that's kind of cool. We did a podcast about Nolan Ryan.
You did it.
Christopher Nolan.
No, I
Ding, ding,
knew.
Hold on. Where's the... there it is.
Where's up?
gotta shut it off.
Yeah,
I knew
he-
that was going to happen.
He said that he was going to say Nolan Ryan, and we caught him. Pour some Gatorade on Conrad. We got him.
We're now doing a baseball podcast.
Yeah.
Every time.
What's interesting about that is one of the very few baseball cards that I even had. And that's strange that I'm even remembering this. But my brother was a big card collector, and I just happened to have a Nolan Ryan. But
Oh, wow. That's
Oh,
so
that's
cool.
awesome. Maybe that's why I tapped into that somehow.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
So we did a podcast on Christopher Nolan. It was Nicholas and one of my other sons, Alec. And it was we just kind of put it together. We talked about Christopher Nolan a little bit.
Here's what happened.
It was the very first episode, wasn't it? It was before I even started doing.
No. You had already done it, but it was the first one that Alec and I had ever done. So I had just gotten back from like a school semester. I was on break, and my dad was like, "Hey, Tabor and I have started this podcast. You guys should get in on this." And we just started talking about Nolan. We watched Memento. And then I was like, you guys have seen The Prestige, right? Let's just do it. And then we just hopped on the podcast, and that was a mistake because it was like, we're just rambling.
Right. So basically, that first one about Christopher Nolan, we scratched the surface of what Christopher Nolan was about and his movies. It's like it was first graders.
You guys
we were
basically
first graders that got together and tried to do something on Christopher Nolan. So
You established that Christopher Nolan is a man, like that he exists.
And he's a director.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we did pretty good for our knowledge and stuff. I thought we did pretty good. You know, we touched
a
on some
first
stuff,
try.
and so it was cool. But then when Nicholas was telling me about you, it's like, well, this will be really awesome because Christopher Nolan does so many good movies, and I wanted to do a second, possibly a third part on him and talk about some of his other stuff.
Yeah.
And so, so now having you on, we can dive a little deeper. We can talk a little bit more about, Christopher Nolan and his movies and what in the world is going on in his head.
Well, kind of speaking academically, going back to why is it that many academics don't actually like Christopher Nolan? And I think it is because, like you were describing, there is so much to talk about him, and so many people do. He's often kind of thrown into this fanboy or fangirl or just fandom kind of world where everyone, as far as box office and in pop culture, just seems to love him, and that really doesn't make academics happy. And so I think that that's one of the important things to kind of start off with, is that although many people know him, he's not completely beloved in many circles.
Really? Okay.
Is it kind of
academically?
Is it kind of like a gatekeeping thing where like they're talking about like the French New Wave and all these smaller things that people don't know about, and because he's so mainstream and so popular, that it's kind of they're snubbing Christopher Nolan, and like, how could this really be cinema if everyone's enjoying it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that is certainly a part of it. Is academics definitely like taking the thing that is supposedly popular. If you've seen the Tim Burton movie Big Eyes, that was the big thing about the art, right? Well, that's too popular. That's too kitsch. And I think that Christopher Nolan in many ways falls into that how can this artist director who is very thoughtful in what he puts into his movies, how can they make $1 billion, and how can we still call him an artist? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a lot of the questions that come around. Now, the industry, of course, they love that. But when it comes to what is he truly saying, what are his movies truly bringing to the world, I think that they question how any kind of movie, like, I don't know, especially some of his earlier films, Insomnia, even Batman Begins, how can this really be something that we should be taking seriously as within academia?
Right. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Christopher Nolan, and then we'll dive into some of his movies.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I had sent you a little list of some questions.
I have them right here.
And I'll tell you, to be quite honest, Nicholas sent me GPT questions.
I was getting ready. I was packing to come home, and I was like, Dad, Brent wants you to send him some questions. And I know my dad is busy. I knew I was too busy to come up with the questions. So I was like, ChatGPT, give me questions to ask about Christopher Nolan.
And what are my questions going to be? What do you think about Christopher Nolan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
Hey, well, sometimes those are the best questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Remember when he made Interstellar? That was
a good
cool.
movie.
Good.
That was
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I was just thinking about how like sometimes those are the best questions. How when you and I were in your office first talking about this, and like I was just like, what do you think about Dunkirk? And it wasn't like this like super deep like philosophical question or like academic or like film question even. It was just like, what do you think about it? But like sometimes that's
Right. So
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan, he's considered an auteur, right? I mean, is he full-blown auteur?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's kind of first define auteur. What are we talking about
Yes.
here? I kind of break this down using Andrew Sarris's point of view, which is that number one, they are considered to be a pretty good filmmaker. Now, others would say, well, how would John Waters or someone else that isn't, or Ed Wood, how can they fall into being an auteur now? Well, again, are they a good filmmaker? Well, most people would consider it such because they want to watch them, right?
Right.
But the most important thing is that they have a consistent style that, whether it's thematic, whether it is stylistic, whether it's geographic, when you watch their films, you know exactly who it is. And Christopher Nolan is certainly one of those that you can watch, and whether it's the music that you're hearing or the cinematography, if it's in an IMAX theater, yeah, it's going to be Christopher Nolan. So he definitely has that style. Now, again, does everyone really think that he fits the number one criteria, which is that that he is a brilliant filmmaker that can do no wrong? Well, again, people have argued that, but I think that he has proven himself time and time again that he can think outside the box, and that even though he has these similar themes, he is thinking in many, many different directions in how he's approaching them as well.
Right. Yeah, I guess my understanding of what an auteur is somebody who kind of takes control of every aspect of the movie.
Yes. So yeah, usually they're going to be a hyphenated director. So someone like Christopher Nolan is certainly going to write his films. He is then going to direct them. He's going to produce them. Now, we also have to think of who they're doing it with, though, because in this case, Emma Thomas, his wife, is someone that has worked with him since 1997. So Doodlebug, which you can actually find out there in the world, is where they started collaborating, and they haven't ended. And so and that's one of the criticisms certainly of the auteur theory, which is that there is so much credit given to one individual when thousands of individuals can be working on a movie. How can we really claim that this is the work of one artist? Think of Van Gogh or any kind of painter, or even Stephen King or any kind of author. They wrote every word, right? There might be an editor or something in there, but it's them holding the pen or them holding the paintbrush. And how can we say that Christopher Nolan is doing that, working with so many? Well, again, if we have a hyphenated director that we know that they've been a part of all aspects of the filmmaking process, it makes a little bit more sense. Someone like a Woody Allen, where, again, that they're doing everything, including the editing. The Coen brothers, although they don't like giving themselves credit for it, Roderick Jaynes is the editor of all of their movies. Well, Roderick Jaynes is just the Coen brothers, right? And so Christopher Nolan is one of those that is sitting there, and his hand is in every aspect of the filmmaking process.
Right.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and what would be the opposite of the auteur theory?
So I would call that a director for hire. So this is much more typical in Hollywood. Certainly, not everyone can be an Alfred Hitchcock, where you say it, you get the funds and you go out and make it, right? Not everyone has final cut. Usually it is a producer of the film that, if you look at early Hollywood, it was the producers that had the power. And if you look at the Academy Awards, it is still set up that way. Best Picture goes to the producer, not to the director. And that's kind of changed in the industry in some ways. But again, a director for hire is approached by a producer. They say, hey, we would like you to direct this. Would you like to do it? And again, they have to be within a budget. They have to stay within, okay, you can't go over 2 hours. Okay, we're going to tell you who you're going to cast for this. Yeah, so very much a director for hire is where I would place that. And any director that you recognize their name, especially as they progressed over time, may be moving closer towards the status of not producing their own films, for example, and that will kind of break them out of this pattern of, hey, here's a script, don't mess it up, go make us money. Yeah, is kind of the opposite of an auteur. It's not necessarily artistic in the sense that it's theirs from beginning to end. Again, sometimes it's taken away from them, and the studio or the producers edit the film because their job is literally to be on set and translate what is on the page onto film.
Right.
So we had mentioned this in a previous podcast. I can't remember what episode it was, but there was something back in the day called the studio system, where nowadays we use the package system, where we put together a package. We have a director, we have a writer, we have a list of actors that have either signed on or are talking about signing on, and that's how we get movies made. But before, the producers used to get a movie, and then they would hire a director, and he would do that portion of the movie, and then that director would leave.
Right.
And then that director would just go and do a bunch of movies, and that's all he did. He wasn't in charge of the writing. He wasn't in charge of making sure the set design was to his specifications. And it kind of feels like Marvel movies are kind of moving back toward the studio system, where the director is just there, like you said, to make sure that what's on the page gets on the screen, and then after that, it's no longer in their hands anymore.
It sounds like this very compartmentalized way of doing it. Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own little compartment. You stay right there. That's what you do.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the factory system, right? That was the goal. Is that how can someone like John Ford? How can he had directed over 100 films? I think closer to 200 films. How can you do that? It's because he was a director for hire early on, right? And all he was doing was sitting on the set, directing. Other people did the editing. Other people made decisions on distribution and so forth. And, we still see elements of that. I think that Netflix is moving closer towards that with how often they're churning things out. Some are literally there to direct, and then Netflix or other more independent studios just kind of take over so that they can churn out content. Because in the world of streaming, it's not necessarily about the artistry, and it's not necessarily about getting movies into theaters, because there's a certain type of movie that ends up in theaters nowadays, and it's going to be a Christopher Nolan type film.
Right. So you can definitely see certain themes with Christopher Nolan. I don't know that I've seen all of his movies, but the ones that I have seen, they all kind of deal in some sort of time or memory or something like that.
Yeah, I would say they all have to do with like time, memory, identity, perception, dreams, and stuff. But I think, this is just personally me, I think like every film has to do with time. There are some that have to do with like time and memory, or time and this, but I think all of them have an aspect or an element of time within his films.
Mm-hmm. So every director, we notice that they kind of, it's almost like they have their own style, right? Directors have their own style. And a lot of times we find that it seems like stuff from their childhood, their upbringing, whatever, kind of make their way into their style of filmmaking and their type of movies. So for Christopher Nolan, why do you think he spends so much time, on these types of themes?
Yeah, you need to kind of go back to the beginning, and that's really what looking at an auteur is what is it from their past that they're bringing to their films that show up time and time again. And Christopher Nolan is certainly one of those. And I know that on your last podcast, you kind of talked about Christopher Nolan growing up in London. He has a father who is British, and he has a mother that is American. Yeah. So he spent a lot of time in both London and Chicago in the United States, where his grandparents lived, and he spent a lot of time there. And so a lot of this is from a kind of a different perspective, being a dual citizen, being able to have so many different ideas that he's able to kind of bring to this, which eventually show up in there. But I think that a lot of this also has to do with a couple things. Number one, he was a film fan from the very beginning of his life. He went to Star Wars at the age of 7, and it changed his life. It's a matter of influence, right? I think that
who were his influences?
He had several that stand out. So Star Wars, George Lucas absolutely is going to be up there. When it comes to the style, the coldness of a lot of his movies, which is a criticism that many people give, that's going to be more based in Stanley Kubrick, because 2001: A Space Odyssey is one of those movies that has absolutely influenced, again, his style and the pacing of some of his movies as well. Others, Ridley Scott. Really, it's about world building. So the world building of 2001, the world building in Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, for example, from 1982.
Right.
He also deals a lot with subjectivity when we're talking about perception and subjectivity. Someone like Terrence Malick it stands out as someone that heavily influences him, especially with the flashbacks and the flash forwards, the flash presence in some cases, like Inception. So yeah, lots of influences actually that, like any good director or any good artist, you're going to steal from the best and you will inspire some of the best as well, as Christopher Nolan has.
Yeah. So do you think, I had a question and I just lost it. I got nothing now.
All right. What do you got, Nick? You got a question?
I could just keep going down the list.
Well, talk a little bit about the English connection, that he was an English literature.
Oh, yeah. I think
major.
I kind of mentioned that a little bit in the first podcast we did. But yeah, I think one of the best things about Christopher Nolan is his stories. And it's because he was like an English lit major, and his father had said he had done Doodlebug, and he had started working on filming and stuff. And his dad was like, do something for your degree that is not filming. Like, think outside the box, get something else out there. And so he did like English literature. And I think that had a huge impact on his movie making, because his writing and his storytelling is phenomenal in every movie he does. And so, and of course, his brother, Jonathan Nolan, is a huge impact on him as well. I think both of them writing together. We talked about, Brent, how the movie Memento was based purely on a short story that Jonathan Nolan had written.
Yep.
And so I think they both have influenced one another in their filmmaking and in their storytelling and writing.
Yeah, and for a long time collaborated, but also known as Jonah. Jonathan also kind of known as Jonah, but he is someone that has made a career on his own, right?
Yeah.
And not as much time to kind of work with his brother, but Emma still works very closely. But yeah, that camaraderie that we saw. And one interesting thing is, Jonathan does not have an accent at all, where Christopher does, and it kind of shows the two sides that they work so well together. That that where one person kind of thinks something a certain way, the other one is going to come in, like the Coen brothers, right? That's two sides of the brain that they kind of bring in some very interesting elements in their collaboration.
Right.
We just talked recently about Zaz and Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker, and how the three of them all offer something different to the film. We're all watching one movie at the end of the day, but little aspects of each of them ends up in their movies. So it's kind of it's kind of cool to see that with other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with the Zuckers and Abrams, for example, like they of course went their separate ways and worked on different things, but it only brought in one element. And so not that they didn't make good films, whether it's Ghost and so forth, it was just not the same, right? It's that collaboration that really kind of blossomed a lot of the work that they did. And we can say that Christopher Nolan is certainly that way as well. And once he broke off on his own, we kind of saw differences in his approaches as well, where subjectivity, subjective. Well, I guess let me describe a little bit in my dissertation of how I would describe these differences between, some of the earlier work that he did and kind of moving forward. But kind of the argument that I'm making in my master's thesis is that Christopher Nolan is one of these auteur directors, is kind of that theory is kind of moving to the wayside, like, can we really give someone that much credit? Well, Christopher Nolan has done that by branding himself a certain way, where he shows up on every documentary about filmmaking. You will find him on the 2001: A Space Odyssey extra features. You will find him on the Blade Runner extra features and so forth, because he is branding himself as being a certain type of director, which I argue to be a realist director. So Jonathan, kind of early on in his career, worked with him looking at subjectivity, which is where we can really get into the point of view of the characters, and we become a character in and of ourselves, because we are not necessarily someone that knows anything more than what the characters know.
Right.
Right. We can see that in Following. We can see that in certainly Memento. Don't want to rehash some of the things that you talked about earlier, but The Prestige, right? It's all about this subjectivity, even Insomnia, where the locations are matching the psyche of the characters and so forth. And that's very much a Jonathan Christopher Nolan collaboration. But after they kind of went separate ways, or once they became very busy, we kind of moved into different areas. So psychological realism is another one that I would point out that he does. But the one that I find really fascinating is scientific realism, which is where things like Interstellar, things like Inception, even things like Tenet, where you watch that and go, where's the science in that? It doesn't seem very scientific to me. But it is. It's very much grounded in a form of realism that, even if it's not realistic, the story itself draws you in. And because of the grounded nature of, well, hey, actually, there is some scientific fact talking about dreams, being able to have layers in dreams, or, the space-time continuum, certainly, or physics and so forth in Tenet. We can absolutely see that within his oeuvre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remembered my question.
Oh, go.
Here we go, baby. So his movies he's very successful. They're very visually appealing. I mean, everything that he does, it seems like it's just really good, blockbuster type stuff. Do you think that it's so successful because he deals with things that people are really interested in? I mean, it seems like for me and a lot of people, when you're thinking about time travel or time space or all of those types of things, they're things that they all think, oh, that's really cool. I'd like to know about that, right? Wouldn't that be neat if we could do those types of things? So I'm kind of wondering, is a lot of his success kind of based on the fact that the stuff he puts out, everybody's really interested in watching it?
I think that's an interesting perspective, and I agree in certain ways. But if you look at his movies, I don't think that a studio is ever sitting there going, ooh, people want this story here. Let's make this. I think that Christopher Nolan, Inception, for example, took 10 years for him to write, from beginning to end. And so I guess the other way of kind of looking at this is, more than he's making movies that people want, I think that he's making movies that people need, in the sense that many of them are based in kind of current events that you wouldn't necessarily be able to put a finger on and go, oh, I see what he's doing there. And I'll give you an example of that, and that is in Interstellar, where at the very end of the movie, not to spoil anything, but I will say that, spoiler alert, what I will say is at the end of the movie, everything kind of comes full circle. We know that the Earth is dying, crops are dying, dust is coming in and destroying the Earth, and we need to find a new planet to live on, right?
Right.
But what he was basing that on, and we can see it at the very end on the television up in the spaceship, and that is using the actual Dust Bowl survivors to describe that. What Christopher Nolan did was he went to Ken Burns and said, hey, Ken, you have made an entire documentary called The Dust Bowl, and that is the story that I am trying to tell, is not that this might happen in the future. What he's saying is, this has already happened, and we tend to forget the past history that we've seen. The Dust Bowl, for those that are unfamiliar, they overcropped. There was too much agriculture going on in the plains area, and because of that, these dust bowls picked up, and it was destroying that area of the world. Think of Grapes of Wrath, where they needed to leave and go to California because of that. Well, again, Christopher Nolan is finding things that we need to know, that we need to hear, and using them in a way that we can think differently about those topics, and realize that, hey, this seems like a dystopian future, but we've been there and we need to do something about it as well.
Yeah.
Rather than give us a lecture, he takes a point that we need to hear and puts it into an entertainment prospect rather than.
Yeah.
So the three films that you mentioned, Interstellar, Inception, Tenet, those are the ones we're talking about today. Kind of going along with what you just said, about how he's taking like relevant things in the world that we need to understand and then putting it like in an entertainment focus, like an Interstellar. What about Inception or Tenet, either of the two, would you say is like maybe the point he was trying to get across? Like if those weren't just for entertainment purpose, and all three of these films fall under the scientific realism and all have aspects of science, what about those?
Well, let's go with Tenet and even break out of the science a little bit. And we just kind of need to look where it was located. And of course, that was in Eastern Europe with Russia and different areas right there. A lot of that is definitely a play on the Cold War that was very common during his childhood that he was very aware of. And, even looking into 2020, where is the world going in that area, and how might different aspects of technology be used against us in some ways? This was, I'm sure that he was writing it before, but this is shortly after an election that many people believe, different areas like China and Macedonia and Russia and so forth were meddling through technology to try to influence elections, right? Well, now we have a story which is all about how is technology being used for nefarious purposes, right? And again, we have to kind of look at, well, where in the world is it taking place, and what is he trying to say? It's not an allegory it's not saying this is history itself of the Cold War, but wow, we thought that this ended, but what war are we in now? And it's a war against technology and the science behind that, whether it's AI or social media or different forms of media such as that.
Interesting.
And I guess Inception, because now I'm curious to see what all the real world implications are for all three of these films. We just got done watching Inception. What would you say the real world implication for Inception is?
Yeah, so we have to go to the core theme itself, which is about grief, right?
Yeah.
It's this big spectacle that is talking about a couple of different things. Grief of what? Grief of losing a child or a father relationship certainly is in there. We can also see the grief of a loss of a partner and not being able to handle that. In the case of Dom, of course, the Leonardo DiCaprio character, the loss of his children and trying to get them back. Grief is within all of this, right? But it's showing grief from various different perspectives. And we can see that through the different layers that we have within the dreams themselves, which, again, if we're talking about scientific realism, we need to understand that sleep is one of those things that we should all be experts on because we're all dreaming, but yet we know so little about.
Yeah.
And I think that this was a way of trying to show how we cope with certain aspects. Christopher Nolan is someone that subscribes to a lot of Carl Jung and certainly Freudian concepts within the world, but how can we have a heist film? If we're talking about genre, for example, what type of movie is this? If it's a heist film, well, what is it using in order to do that? It's using science fiction within this to tell this story of grief. So again, it's taking something that we all encounter. So going back to what Dad was talking about, right? That it's something that we all can relate to. It's something that we all understand. Yeah. Well, grief we all understand, but how can we turn this into a heist film in science fiction and use psychological realism as well to kind of to argue that?
Right.
So you mentioned how he uses a lot of philosophy in his filmmaking. So does that mean, is there a chance for a moron like myself to become a director not having any of that background?
Well, Christopher Nolan, like many of the greatest directors, could also easily have taught a course in philosophy. They could have been a professor in that, absolutely. But I think that if we were to say, what is Christopher Nolan's philosophy and how can we better understand this? Think of it like, if it doesn't feel real, kind of connecting to what you were talking about, that, wow, that we just connect to these. If it doesn't feel real, it really doesn't matter how big the spectacle is, right? We've seen that, I think, in Michael Bay films. There's lots of spectacle, but if it doesn't feel real, which he kind of does, certainly within the elements of realism and certainly the elements of themes such as grief, then it just becomes, the male gaze with the camera.
Yeah.
Michael Bay loves the male gaze. That's what it becomes, right? Spectacle in sex. And trying to sell that to audiences is, I don't think that we connect to that quite as well, or not everyone connects to that right as well.
Yeah.
So how can we bring philosophy into our own? Well, we need to look at ourselves. We need to look at the themes that we have and how do we connect? How do we relate to these? In many ways, is I think that's what he does.
Right.
I think the fact that here we are. What are we? 15 years after Inception came out, and we can still talk about this film and really not know what Christopher Nolan was trying to say throughout the entire film. Did that top fall at the end of the movie? Well, thank heavens he didn't, because now we can bring philosophy into this and be able to have a discussion where many directors, especially directors for hire, are going to just have a nice, clean ending at the end that satisfies everyone, and then you move on to the next movie.
I'm going to tell you what this is about. I'm going to tell you, what you need to think, and that's the end of it. But
right.
Christopher Nolan, his endings or how he works things out, you're able to really think a lot about what was the real meaning of this? Where was he going with this? What do we think about this?
And I think it goes back kind of what you're talking about also, where it's like he is bringing stuff that he relates to film, but also we as an audience also find aspects of his filmmaking that we relate to. And I mentioned this in the last podcast when I talked about The Dark Knight. Obviously, we're not going out being vigilantes, but there's aspects of Bruce Wayne that we can relate to.
Some of us are.
And I think
some of us are billionaires and can do that.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think it's the same with these films, whether it's Inception, Interstellar, or Tenet, especially Interstellar, the relationship between father and child, and seeing the relationship between Matthew McConaughey, his character, and his daughter is something that a lot of people can relate to. Or Cillian Murphy and the strained relationship that he has with his father in Inception. That's something that a lot of audience members could relate to. And so I think that's something that's important about maybe our own filmmaking. And I think our dad talks about that a lot, is that you have to, it's about human relation, and it has to be something that you personally relate to and that others can relate to as well.
Yeah.
Well, I liken it as to having a conversation with someone at work. You're sitting down and someone's telling you this long story about, they're going through their divorce and their dog ran away and all this crazy stuff. And you go, well, actually that kind of reminds me of, I got this thing going on. And I'm not going through a divorce and my dog ran away, but there are aspects of their story that are relatable to me in some way. And it informs my story when I'm telling them my story. And I guess it's kind of the same way, is that we're watching these stories and we're not going through the exact same thing that these people are in these movies, but there are relatable aspects to it. And that's why we're able to kind of latch onto it. And we have our own interpretation of what's going on.
Most of us can relate to some sort of relationship with somebody else, a father-son relationship or a brother-brother relationship, or these types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's one of those things that, again, when we are trying to relate things back to us, we have to realize that as an auteur director, he is bringing so much of himself into this as well. Emma Thomas argued that Christopher Nolan put himself in the role, the Matthew McConaughey role in Interstellar, that truly is him. And that becomes very clear because she claimed that 12 years earlier he couldn't have made this because it's about family. It's about that connection to his own daughter and so forth. And again, we need to find those same things that we can relate to. He, being Christopher Nolan, can tap into so many of these, underlying aspects that we can relate to. We can do the same thing. And it's the big difference between empathy and sympathy, right?
Right.
We can sympathize whether we've gone through it, as you were talking about, Tabor.
Yeah.
So do you think the complexity of his movies, they're fantastic movies, but they're extremely complex when you're watching them. There's a lot of stuff going on. And do you think that's ever maybe a hindrance for people watching them, or kind of a hindrance to relating to the story or staying on track with what's going on?
From the criticisms that I've heard from individuals, that's exactly what they don't like, is I didn't get it at the end. And nobody likes getting to the end of a movie, and especially not having a satisfying ending in their opinion, which is, I need to know what happened.
Right.
And in many ways, that's why academics also don't necessarily like it, because they feel tricked. They feel like he's a one-trick pony in that way, that it's like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Ooh, you know that there's going to be a twist at the end, and that can get old, right? But and I would say within pop culture, we can see that that's happened as well. South Park had an entire episode called Inception, which is kind of talking about...
He brought this up earlier.
Yeah.
We just did the
Yes.
Spider-Man meme, but he brought this up earlier. But I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I mean, it's the obvious sheep, just like sheeple, right? Everyone is going to go along with it. Just because Christopher Nolan made it, it's got to be brilliant.
Yeah.
And of course, those the creators, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, said, you know what, we didn't get it, we didn't like it, and we're not going to be afraid to say, hey, it's a little convoluted. So let's make a whole episode about this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good episode. I highly recommend
It is an excellent episode.
anyone who hasn't seen that episode, check it out.
What is it?
It's an episode of South Park called Inception.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's making fun of the complexity of Inception.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, though, think that Tenet is probably like one of his most complex films or challenging films, or maybe a film that just doesn't make sense, period. And so why do you think that film, maybe for audiences compared to like Inception and Interstellar, is harder to understand?
Again, I think that in many cases, especially with with younger individuals, they don't understand the concept of the Cold War and what is the battle that is kind of raging in there. I think that also, when we're talking about emotion, Tenet in many ways kind of withholds emotion, that emotional anchoring that we kind of look for in there. And I think that in many ways that collapsed the premise of who are we fighting for? Whose side should we kind of be on in this case? Because, who is the true character that we can really get behind, that
Who is the
emotional connection?
protagonist?
Right. As far as the protagonist, I mean, I think that what's his name? John
David
Washington? John David Washington. There we go. I think he was fine, but I don't think that he was also the star that people were trying to latch onto as well. He wasn't a Matthew McConaughey. He wasn't a Leonardo DiCaprio. And we didn't have a lot of the people that we did see again that we kind of look for in a Christopher Nolan film weren't necessarily in there. The Cillian Murphys,
Right.
even someone like Michael Caine didn't show up.
He had a very small part in the restaurant.
Michael Caine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
Right. Well, and same thing with Dunkirk. Not that I don't feel that was the problem, but he was a voice, right? A voice in the plane. We're looking for those stronger connections. Someone like Alfred with Michael Caine.
Right.
well,
Or the professor in Inception. I don't know. I saw that. That was one of the first movies that I saw after COVID, or I guess it was during COVID. He finally got it back into theaters. And I guess when you're talking about the convoluted nature of Christopher Nolan, you have to watch his movies twice, which a lot of people do not like. And this was from the very beginning. Following, absolutely, you need to see it twice to really get the underlying nature of what is it that he's trying to say. Because once you know the ending, or you think that you know the ending, you watch the movie differently when you watch it again. Memento's the same way. And Tenet is one of those that I just don't think that people were into enough to even watch a second time to try to get the complexities within the story that they're trying to tell.
Unless you're a nerd like
It's
me.
interesting that you brought up John David Washington. Actually, when I watched Tenet, that's one of the things that I thought is, I don't know who this is, and he's the main actor, and this, I'm not sure I like him or not.
Denzel's kid.
but the thing is that, see, my argument is that I don't know if that's Washington's fault. I'm wondering if it's the movie's fault, because you see him in Black Klansman,
And he's
he
phenomenal.
glows in that movie.
Right.
He's incredible in that
Well,
movie.
afterwards, you told me who he was and what he was in, And then I thought, oh, yeah, I like that guy. Yeah. But still, for this character, maybe this lead character, I don't know that I liked him in that role. I don't know.
Same with Robert Pattinson. I mean, the Batman is one of my favorite. Certainly, well, I don't know. I love all Batmans. Going back to Bruce Wayne, he's one of those. Of course, of all the superheroes that he's going to make, being Christopher Nolan, he chooses the one that is so grounded in realism that that's his mantra, right? But I think that, there's just certain characters that work, and you have to have that emotional connection. And I think it was very hard with Tenet.
I think John David Washington as Cobb would have. I think that would have been. I mean, obviously Leonardo DiCaprio was amazing in that role, but putting John David Washington in that role, there's more emotion, and you would identify with him more, and that would have made him pop off the screen a little more than he did in Tenet.
How about we don't blaspheme on this podcast? No, I think it's kind of like what everyone was saying, but I think kind of what you were saying, there's more emotion in Inception, and kind of like what you were saying, Brent, with Tenet, it was kind of just like emotionally lacking, like the whole film. It was almost like it was just a story for story's sake.
You know what it was? It was a high-tech, convoluted, complex documentary. We were watching a documentary. Because, I mean, obviously some documentaries have someone you can connect to emotionally, but most documentaries, you're just watching this thing just unfold.
You're just getting data.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that started from the very beginning, that very cold opening, the very cold building, the European style. It just
and then we're just like thrown into it, and you're kind of just like, what even is going on?
And you could make the same argument with The Dark Knight with the bank heist, but I think that there was a lot more, certainly emotion, but connection to, okay, I get this. They're robbing a bank. I don't think that we quite realized what was going on through much of the movie, even after a second time. And again, if we're going to relate this back to scientific realism, where the science in Interstellar, Kip Thorne helped with everything with that, where it made logical sense. Same thing with studying dreams and in different layers within our own dreams and so forth. With Tenet, although he did use Kip Thorne, so Kip Thorne is a physicist and theorist that helped with Interstellar. He's the one that actually created the formula to create the black hole as realistic as possible. With Tenet, even though people that are physicists go, oh yeah, theoretically that could work and so forth, it's just not as clean and easy to go, oh, that makes sense. I can totally believe this happening.
Right.
Interesting.
Well, do we...
although they did use practical effects in that as well. And I guess that's one thing. What have you all thought about the practical effects that he uses within his movies to bring that realism?
Yeah, one of the main things that I love about Christopher Nolan. I mean, I love some good CGI. If CGI like looks good, then like I don't care. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I love some Sharknado, man.
Yeah, Sharknado really does it for me.
I'm just kidding.
But just well, one of the things that you and I talked about, Brent, before I came back, and I mentioned it to them when we were just watching Inception, was the hallway fight in Inception. And how when you first watched it, when it first came out, you were like, he did it. He used CGI. And then...
Well, that was the trailer. The trailer. When I saw the trailer, I went, oh my goodness, that looks so fake. Yeah. So it was before it came out.
Okay.
But yeah, so I took not just one of my film classes, but two of my film classes to that one night after the other. So it must have been a summer semester. And we talk about the auteur theory. We talk about style and consistencies and so forth. And I went to that. And even the first night I went trying to figure out, okay, if that is real, how did they do that? And one of my favorite things about Christopher Nolan is that on every movie, whether it's Oppenheimer or whatever it is, he has a bonus disc of extra features where he goes through and talks about his process and why, not only the philosophy of why he likes realism, but then the practicalities of it. And I never imagined how they actually did that hallway sequence, but they show it in all its glory, and it's amazing. to know that it was done for real, because it doesn't necessarily look like it until you just go, well, of course it's a Nolan film. He did it, and he absolutely did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, how did they do it? Because what I pictured was, when Nicholas said this is real, it's not CGI. They really made this rotating fight scene. I'm thinking, okay, well, it's a great big drum. They've created a space inside of it that looks like a room or a hallway, and they just keep rotating it. And maybe they're filming at the end of it, and it's stationary type of thing.
Yep. They did the exact same process as 2001: A Space Odyssey. So again, when we're talking about influence, it's the same thing. If you remember the jogger jogging around in 2001: A Space Odyssey, how he's running up and down and so forth. And it's because it is on a gimbal that is constantly moving, and the camera is what is stationary. But there were also cameras that were on cranes that showed different aspects of it. But especially in the room as it was moving, there's the stationary camera that shows everything toppling, and then there's the one other camera that kind of shows it actually spinning as they're running around. So yeah, a couple different ways of doing it, but that gimbal, same technology as 2001: A Space Odyssey that he brought into a 2010 film.
Yeah. And Nightmare on Elm Street, as I mentioned earlier tonight. Yep, same thing.
I have not seen that. Have you seen that, Brent?
Yes, from the 84 version?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
They're
Christopher
practical effects. Back then, in 1984, there was no visual effects, right? They were all practical special effects.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is one of the things that I absolutely love about Christopher Nolan and many of the different directors that started in his era, is that they are grounded in much more practical filmmaking, where Tarantino is going to shoot on film. And certainly, I was going to say J.J. Abrams, but even he's broken out of that. Wes Anderson tries to shoot on film, at least did there for a while.
Favorite director, Wes Anderson.
Oh, nice.
I hate Wes Anderson.
Yeah, but they're always grounded in, let's make this practically. Let's have everyone, feel and be a part of this process as well, and not bring in the computer all the time. But like I said, like you said, Sharknado, you need a Sharknado every now and then, but not in a Christopher Nolan movie.
What's your opinion on this new thing that people have been doing with practical effects and then augmenting the practical effects a little bit with CGI? Because I think I'm okay with that. I think straight CGI, I don't like how it looks, but when you're using CGI to kind of like paint a little bit on something that's already made practical, I kind of like how that looks.
Yeah, and it's certainly kind of moving up in the world. But we kind of have to look back to when this started, and it was in animation where this really came about, where they were kind of looking at, okay, well, we want to hand draw the animation, but we also want to have CGI enhancements, and we want the color timing and different things to be done. And so there's been times in the past that this has been used, but it just makes it easier. We might not all be able to have RenderMan or whatever software we would use to make the special effects, but we can do that practically and then use AI to enhance that. And it just becomes a new medium or a new approach that I think is fascinating. Can't wait for a feature film to do that all the way through.
So since we're on this practical effects thing and technical realism kind of that you've talked about, do you think Christopher Nolan's choice of committing to using practical effects, do you think that affects the immersion of the audience in the film? Or do you think if he had chosen to use CGI, he could have achieved maybe the same effect and immerse us still in the film?
Well, let me be a devil's advocate here and just talk about an example of where I questioned the use of a practical effect, and that was in Dunkirk. And I know that we're not necessarily talking about Dunkirk, but I'll give you an example of where he paid $5 million for an actual World War II era plane, not to put it in a museum, but to crash it on the screen. So was that necessary when he easily could have had a CGI plane do practically the same thing, because as he films, he also doesn't, he's not one of those directors from the 80s that gives you 5 different angles, kind of messing with time to show, ooh, look at this, it's actually for real. In Dunkirk, for me, I think that I would have liked that $5 million plane to be in a museum where I could see it now, not necessarily on film being destroyed in front of our eyes. So does it help us ground? Does it ground us in a way that we relate more to the characters? I think in some ways, but I think that sometimes it is all a part of that branding. That if I don't do this, then people are going to be asking why I didn't, because I'm the practical effects guy.
You can toss him aside now. He's no longer the practical effects guy.
Right.
He's sold out.
Yep.
I think in Tenet, I think he crashed a plane into a building. I think that was real also.
He did.
Yeah.
Yep. And with that one, he actually looked at the numbers and said, okay, it would actually be cheaper to buy this plane that can't go up in the air anymore. I've already built this building. Crashing this real plane is going to be cheaper than trying to recreate that in CGI. Because originally he was thinking CGI until he went, it's actually cheaper, and I can justify doing that.
Right.
That's so funny.
So, not that I necessarily want to change the subject from CGI to this, but this is something that
You're going to, aren't you?
I'm going to. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I would definitely like your opinion on this. IMAX, 70 millimeter, 65 millimeter, large format. Is any of this actually worth it, or is it just a gimmick?
Well, again, branding. If it wasn't worth it, it's all great for branding. But no, in his view, there's a documentary called Side by Side, which came 2012. So it's been quite a while ago, with this debate of, okay, should we go completely digital, or should we hold on to some of this film? He is one of the last men standing. And I say men because it is literally only men that still use film sometimes. But is it worth it? His argument, in which I completely agree, is that you cannot recreate the clarity and the look of what you can get on film. So we know that televisions now, it's about 4,000 lines of resolution is what we're getting, right? In theaters, they typically get up to about 5,000. They're working on getting up to 8,000 lines of resolution, the clearest that we think that we can get. But even then, it cannot touch what 70 millimeter. Now, that's 35 millimeter that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking pretty small,
Right.
35 millimeters across diagonal. 70, we do not have, and probably will not have in my lifetime, anything that is going to be able to recreate that clarity. Now, when we're thinking IMAX, which is even bigger, you can't recreate it. He proved that with Oppenheimer, in going, okay, well, I'm shooting much of this film in black and white, and I want to shoot that in IMAX. They had to create a camera and film stock in order to do that. Because again, you cannot create the grain look that he wants, the cinematic look, and you cannot create the resolution with the smaller formats.
Right. He's creating stuff to create his movies.
Yeah, he's world building, just like those that inspired him. Right. He is world building, and he is starting there with how it looks on the image.
In Interstellar, I had read that IMAX lenses, they were prototypes. I'm guessing he developed them, or had a team develop these things so that he could create what he wanted to create.
Yeah, and he's been experimenting with this with practically every film. Dark Knight is the first one that I remember him doing that. And if you have the Blu-ray, or if you saw it in theaters, the aspect ratio actually changes, because back then the cameras were so loud, and because, again, based in realism, he did not want to do ADR, which is kind of doing looping after the film, because the camera was so loud they would have to recreate their lines in the studio, and he didn't want that, and so they only shot the action sequences. But as he has moved along, he's used more and more IMAX footage, to the point now that the Odyssey will completely be shot in IMAX, because when you're talking about that prototype, he has created a camera now that is so quiet that the camera can be right up in the actor's face, and you will not even hear it. And so the lenses,
Jeez.
the sound, everything, he is at the forefront of this because nobody else is knocking on IMAX's door saying, hey, what can we get? I mean, there are some that are shooting in IMAX.
Ryan
The
Coogler.
Mission Impossible films, but again, sequences, not entire movies.
Yeah.
So you think even with, you know, Ari Alexa coming out with like a large format camera and Blackmagic Design,
Cinema
they're
camera.
making bigger sensors and everything, that you think that we're still years away from anything digitally matching IMAX?
Yes, I mean, because they have, and he was a part of this development, the digital IMAX formats. He's created those. They do not compare to actually filming on the film version.
Huh. Interesting.
How much do
So-
you think that camera he made cost? Like $20?
I don't even want to speculate because I would probably be way off. More than, well, and the thing is that IMAX cameras you can't buy, Panavision cameras you cannot buy, which is why the industry has always been able to kind of hold a monopoly in that case with, oh, you want our cameras, you have to get them through us and pay, you know, top dollar in order to get that. And IMAX is the same way. Christopher Nolan does not own any of these cameras, and he does not own the technology that is created. He's doing it for the practicality of his films, but all patents are going to be held by the patent holders, which is IMAX and Panavision.
Well, that's a bummer because I was thinking I'd pick up 2 of them for our short films and stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
There you go. That's what we need out here for sure.
For real.
I'd say the closest we'll ever get, unless I stumble into some money, is probably shooting on that new 65 millimeter Blackmagic that they got. That new large
cinema
format
camera.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, technology is constantly updating, constantly changing. Who knows? Who knows what will happen? But until that changes, I can guarantee you that Christopher Nolan will not be changing his philosophy. Which, when we're talking about an auteur, one of the things that we didn't mention is that they have a philosophy of the world that does not change. Think of someone like Oliver Stone. Just because he's a director for hire for certain movies, which he's kind of turned into in some cases, he's not going to change his opinion on George W. Bush or whatever it is that he's making, right? And Christopher Nolan will not change his philosophy until he is forced to in some ways, which is every IMAX camera has been destroyed. They've gone out of business and he has no other chance. Well, he would buy IMAX before that happens. I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm a rapid fire you some questions.
Okay.
Tenet or Interstellar?
Interstellar all the way.
Inception or Interstellar?
Inception, just because I have so much history with that one. But I mean, Interstellar is one of those that when we're talking about first reactions, Dunkirk was that way for me as well. Like, Dunkirk was not a, oh, wow moment until I saw it the second time. Interstellar, it has taken me some time for it to become as beloved as it is to me now, as well as audiences. And so, yeah, I would say Inception because that's never changed for me.
Nice. If you had to pick your top Nolan film, period, whether it's out of these 3 or all of his filmography, what would you say is your top?
I'm going to have to go back further as well because I was introduced to Christopher Nolan long before many actually were. And that's because I grew up in Utah and I went to the Sundance Film Festival all throughout high school, college. And so I went to following when it played at the Sundance Film Festival. And I actually just saw, I think that Regal just sent something through that said the first time in theaters following is, I think it's January 17th. It's coming to theaters for the first time. And I'm like, well, I saw that in a theater, but it is true. It was not released widely. And then Memento I saw in 2000. And so I have seen Memento probably more than any other Christopher Nolan film. I will always introduce that in my intro to film courses for editing because I feel that there is no better way of being able to tell a story in a subjective way where we are a part of the characters. Like we, as we kind of talked about, we are in the maze. We are not above the maze like an Alfred Hitchcock movie where we see everything going on. Right. We become a part of the character. So for me, the one that I will always go back to, I can always talk about, and I still do not completely understand, and that would be Memento.
I talk about this all the time with
I still haven't seen Memento.
you. Gotta watch it too.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
sorry, guys.
Here's the thing.
I'm sorry.
You'll watch Memento and you'll get to the end and say, I still haven't seen Memento. I've watched
I don't know what happened.
I still haven't seen it.
I've watched it 4 or 5 times and still it's the hardest one to understand. Like,
Really?
it's bonkers. It's just hard to
Well,
follow
and-
because like what Brent was saying, the editing, when the way Nolan explained it is it's done as a horseshoe, and you have the end of the film, start of the film, and then scene until you meet in the middle.
And then both sides meet. I see.
Right. So one is chronological. The black and white footage is all chronological. The color footage is scene by scene going backwards. And again, it's all about subjectivity, because if we're thinking about memory, just because we think that we remember something a certain way doesn't mean that that's the way that it actually occurred. And so as we are watching this movie, we are seeing things backwards while he's trying to find the murderer of his wife, right? So it's a detective that has anterograde amnesia, so he cannot form new memories, but yet trying to use this
Right.
to solve a mystery. And we're along for this ride. We are in the same state of confusion that he is in.
Yeah, you
and so
only
the structure itself, we become a part of Leonard.
right.
Mm-hmm.
You only get to know what he knows.
But you brought up the maze, and maybe you can touch on that a little bit more, because Interstellar kind of has to do with the maze, right? And I think you were showing me he had like an interview or something where he talked about how he's kind of like always in the maze in his filmmaking. So
Yeah. Let me kind of, I guess, back up a little bit with that. That if you know Syncope, which is his production company, right? So you'll see that at the beginning of all of his movies. If you look at the logo, that is a maze. And then if you look at the branding or the ads for Interstellar, it's the same. Or not, sorry, for Inception, you'll see the same thing, because Inception is completely a part of this maze, because that's what they have to create. Right? The designer has to create a maze, which is why some people argue that even when we think we're in reality, we're actually still in a dream. Because remember when he was running through, I think it was Morocco or wherever he was, through the streets, and he got to that point that he was trying to go through this very narrow part that seemed very unnatural. He was probably in the maze, right? So I have a quote that I can read specifically from Christopher Nolan, and it says, "I always find myself gravitating to the analogy of a maze. Think of film noir. And if you picture the story as a maze, you don't want to be hanging above the maze, watching the characters make the wrong choices, because it's frustrating. You actually want to be in the maze with them, making the turns at their side. That keeps it more exciting. I quite like being in that maze." And he has proved that time and time again with every movie that he makes, that we don't know any more than the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Tenet was certainly that way. Interstellar was certainly that way, which is not typical in Hollywood, especially when we're trying to build suspense. I had mentioned Alfred Hitchcock. He never would have put us in the maze. Alfred Hitchcock would have shown us the bomb under the table with a 2-minute timer. So for that 2 minutes while they're talking, he's building suspense, right? That is not Christopher Nolan. He wants us to be a part of his movies subjectively, a part of the character's point of view.
So, what movies? Which one is your favorite?
The Prestige.
Prestige for you?
Yeah.
The Prestige.
Prestige?
No way, really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
I think mine would probably be Interstellar. I love the Prestige, and I love the actors and the characters and stuff. But I am very much a emotions guy. When I watch a movie, if that movie can pull me in emotionally, it's a fantastic movie to me. And I
think that any parent is going to feel that.
Right. And so Interstellar was very much, I'm thinking about what the dad is doing. I'm thinking about the decisions he's making, how this is going to affect his children, blah, blah, blah. And
Did you ever watch Interstellar from Rooney's perspective?
Oh, there you go. Edward Rooney. The Jeffrey Jones. I almost Jeffrey Jones almost didn't make it into this podcast.
Yeah, somehow Jeffrey Jones makes it into every podcast for no reason.
I was not
whatsoever.
expecting that one.
There he is.
Yeah.
There's Rooney.
Oh, there he is. Which I thought was really interesting how Tim Burton handled him missing from the Beetlejuice movie.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
So
sorry.
anyway, sorry.
Interstellar.
After you get done talking about Rooney. So there's a scene in there where the daughter, she's grown up now, and she's conveying to, I think it's, who is she talking to? She's conveying to that Professor Brand has passed away, and she's talking to the daughter, the other Dr. Brand. And then at the end of that little, I'm sorry to tell you, your father's passed away. But then at the end, she says, did you guys know? Did you know that this was all a farce? And then she says, like, Dad, did you leave me here? Or something like that. I can't remember the exact words.
Yeah.
But that was so emotional for me because I started to see Haley, my daughter. I'm watching Haley on the screen talking to me, right? And I'm starting to lose it.
Is this where McConaughey's bawling while he's watching the video?
It might be, but I can't remember now. Yeah.
I will say, even though The Prestige is my favorite, Interstellar probably does make me the most emotional when watching it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you want to know why I like
no.
The Prestige? Is because I'm not a father, but I'm a brother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And that-
and a clone.
But
Yeah.
where's his brother?
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of spoilers,
Oh, these people who listen to this, they knew what they were getting
Hopefully
into.
they listened to Christopher Nolan Part 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we already spoiled that a long time ago with the other one.
Okay.
So, yeah.
yeah, I'm sure that you have a disclaimer at the front of all of these.
Oh, I'm sure I do.
Watch the
Absolutely.
movies before.
Tabor, put a disclaimer on everything we've done so far.
All right, I will.
Thanks.
So we don't. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well,
So what else? What else we got? I think we've kind of touched on everything. We talked about.
is there anything specific, Brent, that we haven't touched on that you would like to touch on? Maybe something.
Well, we were just talking about Interstellar, and I was going to ask you, what do you think about the end of Interstellar? And do you have, of course, we don't have Christopher Nolan giving us his interpretation, but how do you read the end? And I'm referring to when he, I guess we're spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Okay.
Spoiler away.
Yeah.
But he ends up at the deathbed of his daughter. He's survived.
Yeah.
Tell me your interpretation. How did that happen? Think of it like Inception. Did the top fall? Is he really with his children, or is this just a dream? How do you read that ending?
Well, I think of it as real because then he gets in the plane and he goes and continues his mission, and then we also cut to Dr.
Anne
Brand
Hathaway,
doing her thing. So I always interpreted it as real.
I didn't think that it couldn't be real. Are you saying that like maybe he never escaped that wormhole and this is just his?
Yeah.
This is just what he's sunk.
Now he's
into?
constructing this stuff in his own mind.
Right. Because if you remember earlier in the film when they were talking about when it gets to the end, what is it that your mind goes to? And it said that it goes to family.
Yeah.
So
Ooh.
for me, I have in many ways read that movie. Again, this is not the typical Hollywood movie where, yay, it all worked out. Because this is a Christopher Nolan movie. And why would he have mentioned something that, you know, when doom is near, when you are about gone, the only thing that is left in your mind is family, right? And that's exactly where it went later on, which it just doesn't make sense how he would have ended up there, otherwise. So I agree that absolutely we have Brand that is carrying on this mission, but she's the one that survived, right? He's not the one that is going to carry this on. So anyway, I've always been interested to see like how other people are reading this. Because again, did he need to survive for humanity to be saved? No.
Right.
It was a way for him and perhaps even his daughter, when we're talking about Inception and dreams and so forth, where do we go when we are at the end of our life?
Right.
And we go.
You said you're wondering how everyone interprets it. It seems like 90% of the population is probably interpreting it as it really happened. And then there's like the 10%. I didn't even think about that. That's so interesting.
Yeah,
but it's just one of those things that Nolan throws in there because it can be read many different ways. Same thing we were talking about Dom. Is he really with his children or not? Well, there's so many different ways to interpret that because along the way, he's given 10 different arguments that you could make either way. And same with Interstellar. It doesn't make sense that he made it out, but yet he did.
So that is really interesting that you bring that up because now it's got me thinking. And what you did is you just took a confusing movie and just made it more confusing.
Which is why I love talking about Interstellar.
Right.
So many interpretations.
So you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, so he's in his ship and he's going through the wormhole and the ship is coming apart. It's basically disintegrating. And so he has to eject out of the ship and he's just in space in the wormhole. Now, why he's not affected and doesn't start disintegrating like the ship did is kind of, well, why did that happen that way? Why isn't he being bombarded when the ship was? And then you're right. All of a sudden, there's just a point where, he goes to the time thing, but then he's just on this station. They picked him up. They found him out in space somewhere, and
just happened to.
Yeah, they found him out in space somewhere, and so now, my gosh, now I have to rethink this whole thing.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I mean, I got you guys rethinking
my whole life.
Inception. When Sato goes into limbo, he wakes up in Last Samurai, and we get the entire plot of The Last Samurai, and that's his limbo.
Yeah.
And then when he dies, he wakes up on the plane.
Back on the plane.
Yeah.
Last Samurai is my all-time favorite movie. I watch it every year without fail.
Wow.
And every year for Christmas, my daughter comes over and finds my copy of Last Samurai and wraps it and puts it under the Christmas tree. And I forget every year when I open it.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
Well, isn't that Nolan? Isn't that movies, though?
Yeah. So
that's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone have anything they'd like to add before we skedaddle on out of here?
Is there anything specific from the slides that you would like to bring up? Or
so he's mentioning these slides. So I wrote this master's thesis, and then I taught Nolan one more time in 2017. This was right before Dunkirk. And so anyway, I haven't looked at these slides since 2017 was the last time. I don't know if I have anything from the slides, but I guess the one thing that I had been thinking about today is, again, I haven't revisited I did participate in a documentary on Christopher Nolan surrounding the release of Tenet. It was Canal Plus, I think, in Europe. They interviewed me for that, but I really haven't thought much about this recently. And so I've been thinking about, well, how can I tie in things like, well, Oppenheimer, for one? Like, how would I still tie in notions of realism as he's kind of changed? In my master's thesis written in 2017, my argument was that Christopher Nolan was going the Steven Spielberg route. You know, he made all of these big blockbuster movies, Jaws, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and all he wanted in life was an Oscar. And he was never getting it because they were in genres that were not respected, whether it was science fiction or horror. And Christopher Nolan, he made the superhero movie to, beat all superhero movies with The Dark Knight. He didn't get an Oscar nomination, and he needed a way to do that. And that's where I argue that he transitioned into wanting to make things like Dunkirk, where it was grounded in more realism, grounded in war. And so I guess how I would kind of wrap up my argument with this forms of realism and how do these newer films fit in, I would say that it is about ethical realism, where if we look at what history he's telling, there's a lot in Dunkirk and there's a lot in Oppenheimer that is not historical, but it's telling a story like we were talking about with Interstellar that is bringing our reality that we're living in now and looking at it from the past. So Oppenheimer for me is not about 1945. It is very much where we are now. And I think that that is emphasized in the raindrops and showing what happens, this cycle, this effect that happens, that once the can of worms is open, how are we going to then ethically handle this? And same thing with Dunkirk. Who is the hero? Well, they never show anything from the villain's point of view. And so again, who is the hero in the world in which we live? What direction do we go? And I think that we see that with the Odyssey coming up, where war is over. How do we now handle life afterwards and all of the problems that come with it? And so I'm excited to see this newer side of Christopher Nolan. He's gotten his Oscar. He has nothing else to prove, right? So again,
what am I going to do now?
I don't know. Well, yeah, what is he going to do? Well, he shoots an entire movie in IMAX. I don't know. Maybe he will make a movie where we actually don't hear anything. I don't know if you remember with Interstellar when it came out in 2014, most of the theaters around the country had to put a sign up saying, yes, you are meant to not hear much of the dialogue. And again, it's all grounded in this realism. So who knows how far he will go to, maybe we won't see a thing, maybe we won't hear a thing. I don't know. It's Christopher Nolan. We'll have to see what the future holds.
That's right. So, I've forgotten what I was going to say
if
again.
If he writes a realism movie about Helen Keller, do you think it's just going to be a black screen for like an hour and a half?
Well done.
And silent. No, that's what I'm saying. There's got to be something that's coming. You know it. Well, and he loves biopics, but he has never truly made one up until Oppenheimer. I don't know if you're familiar, but he was supposed to make a John Hughes movie. No, not John Hughes. Howard Hughes. A Howard Hughes movie back in the early 2000s. But when The Aviator came out, he dropped it. So I would love to see what he does with that. I would love to see a Helen Keller movie. I don't know. In space with grief. I don't know. Just tie them all in a dream.
And it's playing forward and backwards at the same time.
Helen Keller in space was not on my bingo card.
Your 2025 bingo card,
Yeah.
Helen Keller in space.
Helen Keller in space.
Check.
For sure.
In space,
And
no
if
one can
not-
hear or
if
see
not,
anything.
You all can make it with your IMAX camera that you're gonna.
That's right. It's on its
Yes,
way.
yes.
Nice.
In space, no one can hear or see. That's so funny.
Yeah.
The new
little
Alien
play
film.
on Alien there.
Nice.
All right. So we're going to rate these movies?
We can
Oh, yes.
rate them.
That is something we do, Brent, is we go through each movie and we give it, and usually our dad decides the
Out of
rating
what?
system. Exactly. That's what we're about to find out.
I don't usually pick it.
Oh, is it Tabor?
Yeah, so we're going to be rating these movies 1 out of 10 Matt Damon's blowing into space.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
So is each movie out of Matt Damon's blowing into space?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many Matt Damons are we giving? Let's start with Interstellar, since
Well, does that mean that we don't like Matt Damon, so we want to see him suffer more? Or
yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
is 10 Matt Damon's good?
10 Matt Damons.
10 Matt Damons.
is-
10
is-
out of
is
10 Matt
great.
Damons blowing into space
Yeah.
means you loved it.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
and we love seeing Matt Damon blow into space. Yeah.
got it.
So Interstellar.
Okay, so I think for me, Interstellar, I would give it 8 out of 10 Matt Damons into space.
Okay. What about you, Dad?
I'm going to give Interstellar probably 10.
10.
I think I'd give him 10 Matt Damons.
Okay.
Blowing up.
I'd say I'd give this Interstellar also 8 Matt Damons blown into outer space.
Oh, okay. I'm in between actually. So 8.5 Matt Damons. We're going to cut him in half. We're going to throw half of him out. 8.5 for me.
Nice.
It's just one of
Half of
those.
Matt
So I
Damon.
would say that for me, it's like Hitchcock with Vertigo. I would never tell anyone that is just first getting into Christopher Nolan or never been introduced, oh, go to Interstellar. Just like I would never say, go watch Vertigo before you've seen any other Hitchcock.
Right.
So I don't rate this one as one that you can just jump into. So 8.5.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, there's enough bits of Matt Damon floating in outer space that we could gather up half of them. Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Next one was
Tenet.
Yes.
Oh, Tenet. Yeah.
I'm going to sit out. I didn't watch it this time around. I'm just going off of what I remember it from.
But you've seen it. You've
I
seen it
have seen
before,
it.
just not rewatched.
The first time was that when you watched it with me,
Correct.
and Mom and Alec. Okay.
Yeah, we all watched it together.
I think I've seen
What was
it.
your first reaction? What did you give it then?
Did you fall asleep?
No.
Okay.
No, I fell asleep during Last Airbender.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, understandable.
I'd say 6.5 Matt Damon's.
Okay.
You're still in mine. 6.5.
Yeah.
6.5. Okay.
Yeah.
I would give Tenet. I think I like Tenet more than most people do. I think I would probably give it like a 7.5 out of 10 Matt Damon's.
Yeah. I liked Tenet okay. It wasn't my favorite of him. And like I said before, I struggled a little bit with the lead character that they had. But I'm going to change up mine. I'm going to give it probably 7.5 Robert Pattinson's.
Oh, okay, okay.
There you go. I can
this
go
one.
for that.
I could go for that. I'm gonna give it 7.5. Kenneth Branagh's hitting the rail as he slides off the ship.
Oh my gosh, that was so brutal looking.
Well, I think the last one we did for Frankenstein was how many Christoph Waltzes slamming against the.
I haven't seen the
Oh
new
yeah,
Frankenstein.
Don't spoiler alert that one. That one's too new.
I haven't seen it. Anything that came out in 2025 other than Sinners. I have not seen.
Okay.
Our closest movie theater is 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's silly.
It's torture.
Is it still on the same island though?
Same island, yeah.
Okay, well
It is,
that's
yeah.
good news.
Same side of the island even, but
It's a 40-minute car drive, and I don't have a car. So imagine taking the bus just to go see a movie, and then a
hour and 20-minute drive for him.
So Brent, did you grade that one?
Yeah, I was at 6.5
Oh,
on that
6.5.
one.
Okay.
Now we get to the big dog.
Okay. I want to hear what you all say before I do.
Who wants to go first?
All right,
Everyone
I'll go
watch-
first. Inception. I'll give it
Spinny tops.
I'll give it an 8.5, the size of a tangerine.
Michael Caine.
Yeah.
That's not the right movie. That's
I know.
You fool. Blaspheming on the podcast again. I think for me, I would give it 9.5 spinny tops.
Nice. I'm going to go with probably 8 Michael Caines.
Michael Caine.
Our rating.
Michael
system's
Caine.
messed up.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Brent?
Okay, I was going with 9.75
Oh my gosh.
snowmobiles falling off the mountain.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Nice, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it's right up there. I mean, if I'm only going to give one Nolan film a 10, it's got to be Memento for me. So I can't give it 10, but it's right up there.
It's a
I'll have to watch that.
Tabor.
I'll have to
You're
get
not
on that.
ready.
I'm not ready.
So Interstellar and Inception, I forgot to bring this up. I noticed that in both of the stories, the world kind of wrapped around on itself, whatever they were in.
Yeah.
So he was up in that, I guess it was like a space station, I'm assuming. And it was round and there was like gravity. You could just go anywhere you wanted. And then in Inception they did the same thing. The town kind of folded over on itself. Yeah. I thought that was kind of interesting that he did that twice.
Yeah, and it's recreating quite often what he does within the structures of his films, as was described kind of as the horseshoe, where it's always going back and forth.
Okay.
It's a very common, not only stylistic signature, but definitely a thematic and structural signature as well in Nolan.
Right. Nice.
Well, Brent, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it was
absolutely.
a pleasure.
Man,
absolute
super
pleasure.
informative. Good grief.
Yeah.
Learned
This was a
so
blast.
much. Yeah.
Brent, I'm going to send you
Student loan money. he just gave us. He just gave us 5 credits.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we just took one of your classes. I'm going to send you a short film that we did. It's called Bigfoot Falls. And I'd like you, it's about 15 minutes. And if you could just take a look at it, I'd like you to give me some feedback and about it. I think that would be
Of course.
awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
It's not a Christopher Nolan. Worlds aren't wrapping around on themselves, but
You're working up to that, though.
That's what we're working on, right?
Yeah, I will say this. So Tabor has his own production company, Rat's Nest Productions, and we all work on it and stuff like that. And we've had some like decent films and stuff like that, but this one, Bigfoot Falls, it like makes me cry. But I think Tabor, just to like toot your own horn for you, I think Tabor's just an excellent writer, and I think
you do come up with some really good stories.
He has really good ideas, and I think you could be a Christopher Nolan if you just kept running with writing and just pushed yourself as a writer.
This is going to get cut out of the podcast, by the way.
No, this is at the start of the podcast. Anyway,
well, it needs to find that right brother to be that other side of the brain to just bring it all together even.
That's right.
Yeah.
Even stronger.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so this was awesome. I really appreciate you coming on. And hopefully we can do it again. I'd like to work on some other stuff with you. That would be awesome.
Brent,
absolutely. I mean, there was a while there, directors is all I thought about. So, I mean, I mostly come at it from an industrial standpoint with directors, but absolutely open to anything. I love talking movies. So,
yeah. My mom and dad will be coming down to Hawaii in January.
Oh, that's right. We are coming down.
And so it'd be cool if they could meet you, but also if the podcast studio is set up, you can...
That all depends on if the equipment arrives. It's been funded. Has it arrived? Well, I mean, we have a podcast. We have a really cheap podcast kit there, so we could do something there. But hopefully everything comes in and is set up. But regardless, we will definitely do something.
Yeah,
hey, this thing's portable.
True.
Oh yeah.
We'll cut all of this out of the podcast too. But could you just let us know? Because you were telling me the budget that you guys got was insane for it. Are you able to disclose?
And I can't tell you, especially being recorded at all.
We will cut it out.
No, you can't.
No.
I can send that over text.
Deal.
How about that?
Deal. I just remember
because you're wondering how much it costs to get a state of the art.
Yeah, because
you
said it's gonna have like in the wall cameras and stuff like that, and I had
mirrorless cameras, 6 microphones, its own editing and recording station. What else? Oh, it's going to have a green screen. It's going to have a lighting kit. So we can change the lighting within the room. We'll have an on-air sign. It's going to be completely soundproof so that everything will stay within there.
But
we'll have special curtains that cover the windows.
Is it going to have a card table?
A card table.
Yeah.
Is that what you have there? I can't quite tell.
It's a big card table.
Yeah, this is what everything sits on top of.
So that was actually something that I put in. So I'm the one that put in the request for this room and the proposal and such. But they told me that we were going to keep the desks that were in there. And I said, after getting approved for all of this equipment, are we really going to use these old desks? And they're like, no, we can get some new tables. No, it's going to be amazing. I just don't know how soon. I mean, it happened quickly. Whenever our visiting, so we're hiring someone new that's going to be doing film production here. And whenever she was here, it was at that meeting that I told the librarian, I'm, the advisor on the podcast club, and I really wish that we had a space. And she's like, we have a room. If you put a proposal in, we would really love to like do that. And so I did it. And anyway, so it happened really quickly, and it was approved as of, I think it was last week. VP Walker completely funded. So actually, I think what happened is I worked with the technology person at the library, and what I originally did was a good, better, best. And so I put all of the best equipment on there, and we were approved for the best. So
nice.
That was what we just. So again, I don't know if we get the best. I know what the number is, and he doesn't change that number. I know exactly what it is. If he's like, hey, some best and try to work within a smaller, I don't know what we would cut down on, but we're getting the best.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I can let you know what it would cost to get that studio there.
Just send me a
Up to that,
text.
but it's yeah. I won't even say. I was going to say it was a certain percentage of my salary, but then you would know what I make. But it's a lot. It's a lot. But no, it needs to be. I mean, it's future proof. Well, I mean, not proof, but certainly something that is going to be used for some time to come.
Right. It's
So
got to
we
be.
want to make sure that it holds up.
It's got to be stuff that lasts and
Yeah.
goes into the future and for everybody else, right?
Yep, for sure. So that's the plan. And yeah, I'll let you know if I hear if it will be done by when are you coming in January?
January 22nd through the 26th, I think.
Oh my goodness. I think I am going to be gone that entire time.
No.
Let me look at it.
All right.
And I don't even know if it's on my calendar, but okay, January, I leave. Oh no. Okay. So no, I think I'll have to check. My wife knows for sure. We're going to Tokyo.
That's
Well, Martin
awesome.
Luther King, what is Martin Luther King weekend? Okay, that's the 19th. So I may be back. I think I'll be back.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well,
Because we're leaving, I think the 16th. We'll be gone 10 days. No, maybe 8 days. I'll maybe be back by Monday. So I can maybe see you Monday. What time are you flying out Monday?
I
They
have
might
one.
fly out Tuesday. I'll have to check the tickets again, but
Well,
Okay.
what I'll do is I'll text you the exact information and times and everything, and then
Yeah.
if we can get it to work out, that would be awesome. I'd love
Okay.
to.
whether you do a podcast or not, even just to meet
No,
up
no,
and say
yeah,
hi.
we don't have to do
No, that
a
would be
podcast.
nice. And I know that you usually do Sunday. I'm fine to do it the 25th. I have 8 a.m. church next year. So I'll be done nice and early.
Nice.
Because, yeah, I would imagine that my kids start school on Monday. So I'm thinking we'll be back by that weekend.
Okay.
But I'll send you the dates on my end as well.
Right on. Awesome.
Alrighty, sir.
We ready to?
Yes. Thank you so much. It's getting late there.
Yeah. We ready to wrap on out of here?
Yeah.
Hit the outro.
Do it. And we're gone.
No, don't go. Don't go. Stay. I had to try something.
You did.
All
You
right.
did good.
All right.
All right.
Thank
We'll see you later.
Yes. Thank you so much. Have a good night and happy holidays.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
You
as
too.
well.
Bye.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
All right, I'm recording. Hey guys, thanks for listening to My Dad's Movie Podcast. We would like to offer a shout out to our very first ever oldest son tier patron, Jared Louder. Thank you very much for subscribing to our Patreon and helping our podcast grow. If you too would like your name shouted out at the end of our episodes, head over to patreon.com, My Dad's Movie Podcast, and sign up for the $5 oldest son tier.
Thanks for listening to My Dad's Movie Podcast. We had a lot of fun creating it, and we hope you enjoyed it.
For more content, please check us out at Facebook and YouTube at My Dad's Movie Podcast or visit our website, mydadsmoviepodcast.com.
And always, if you'd like to help support us, please check out our Patreon at My Dad's Movie Podcast.
Thanks for listening, everybody.